Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining me here today so that we could discuss Notorious Nick. So this movie is the real-life story of Nick Newell, a wrestler and eventual MMA fighter who has a unique kind of underdog story because he only has one arm, which means like pretty much every fight he was ever in, he was a underdog in, at least for a long time. And, he's able to somehow overcome the odds and, really apply himself and keep, because when he first got started in wrestling, he was, taking L's pretty regularly and getting bullied at school. He was able to buckle down, really train, really dedicate himself thanks to, a friend of his and, kind of being inspired by his friend. When something, when something happens to his friend, he suffers an accident and passes away. Nick steps up to take an MMA fight in his name so that he can continue on the legacy of his friend. And then the story just kind of follows from there as Nick Newell, tries to, prove himself as a fighter and keep rising up the ranks, and prove that he can make it in MMA. So Notorious Nick is a solid movie. I was drawn here because of the MMA combat sports story, but, I'm familiar with Nick Newell. I think the movie does a good job portraying his story, at least as far as like what I've read and seen in interviews and stuff like that. The movie itself is okay. It doesn't really have it's just kind of a typical underdog story. They didn't do a whole lot to, make this stand out, but it covers it covers the story. It tells Nick's story. It's got decent performances. The actual like in octagon stuff is pretty neat. I thought the fights and the wrestling stuff was pretty well handled here. So I think they did a good job with it. I just think it never really like kind of rises above like just kind of a mid-level biopic. I mean, like I said, it tells the story. It is certainly an inspiring story. But as far as a movie, as entertainment, this was kind of middle of the road to me. So if you're interested in the story or you're interested in MMA or combat sports in general, it might boost it up a little bit. But for me, it's hard to like super recommend unless you're interested in those stories. But if you like sports, underdog stories, combat sports, true life biopics, give it a look. I thought it was a solid movie. But that's my review for Notorious Nick. If you want to check out more, you can go right here on YouTube to my movie review playlist. But until then, thanks for watching this one, and hopefully I'll see you soon.